好，那我们下一场是由Kyungsoo Park 为我们带来的 From Surveillance to Espionage，Unraveling the latest strategies of Kimsuky Group。那这个是一个由北韩，就是非常神秘的那个北韩他们的 APT 群组。那就是这个讲师他们就常年在追踪这个群组这个北韩的 APT 群组他们的一些攻击等等的。对，好，那我们就用掌声来欢迎他。
Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Sung Park from South Korea, and first of all, thank you for having me, the HitCon team, and thank you for being here. And I have a good news for you guys. My English is not too fast, so you can easily understand compared to the previous sessions. So I hope you can enjoy my session. My presentation is not include any kind of assembly language or programming code, so you can easily understand. What I prepare is some APT attack story from the North Korea threat actors. So I focus on how I found this kind of campaigns and what I do during the research and how can I track their activity. So yeah, I hope you can enjoy these presentations. Then allow me introduce myself briefly. Now I'm working in the G-Scaler as a senior security researcher. Our team is an APT research team, so we only focus on the APT research from the various countries. And formerly, I was a Kaspersky Global Research and Analysis team. As you know, I'm a Korean, so I usually tracking the North Korean threat actors more than about almost 10 years. So not only North Korean threat actors, but when I joined the other teams, many people just ask me about the North Korean threat actors. So naturally, I only tracking the North Korean threat actors more than 10 years. So this research also include about their two campaigns. So these days, not only our company, many security vendors follow up the North Korean threat actors because they are very active. As you know, the North Korea has a huge sanctions from the Western countries. They can have many economic sanctions and political sanctions. So to evade this kind of sanction, they using their cyber attack capabilities. So before 10 years ago, they only have a few members, but nowadays they have several groups, several clusters, and several campaigns. This separation is differentiated from depending on the security vendors, but it's the kind of common sense. The first group was a Kimsuky group I introduced today. This group is known as APT 43 or Emerald Slit. They usually targeting some journalists or government people in South Korea. But when they first introduced by the security vendor, they are a relatively small group. But in 2019, the Palo Alto network introduced about the new cluster named the Baby Shark. And also same year, the Apple Seed cluster also introduced. Nowadays, they are usually using the city cluster for their cyber attack. The second group, the APT37, was known as a Skycraft. They have a very similar objective with the Kimsuky group. But they usually attacking the government people and some professors in university in South Korea. But interesting point is Skycraft attacking some defectors from North Korea. Defector means some people who escape from the North Korea. So Skycraft is usually monitoring that defectors. Maybe they also attack some their employees. It means the North Korean deployed their internal employees to foreign country to gather the money. So Skycraft also monitored that kind of deployed employee, North Korean employee. And last one is Lazarus. It's a very famous and some well-known threat actors. But these days, Lazarus is very confused. Many secret vendors and researchers just put the whole campaign activity just one threat actor's name, Lazarus, but it's way more complicated. From the Bangladesh bank heist, it happens in 2016. we called another threat actor's name is APT38 or Blunarov. And in 2017, the Korea Financial Security Institute, they divided another group named the Andariel. So many security vendors now follow the Andariel, Lazarus, and APT38, also known as Blunarov. So at the beginning of Lazarus Group, they are very small groups, but nowadays they are too big. So many security vendors has their own standard, and this is my standard, and our company also follow this kind of groups. And among these North Korean threat actors, today I will introduce about the Kimsuky group. Kimsuky, why they named the Kimsuky is when Kaspersky first initially founded this group, they discovered some North Korean girl's name on evidence, and that girl's name is a Kim Suk-hyang. It's a very Korean style name, Suk-hyang. So Kaspersky changes this name as a Kimsuky. So they start to call them as a Kimsuky. And they're obviously the North Korean threat actors, and also known as APT43 and Emerald Slit. And initially discovered by the Kaspersky, and the most high-profile cyber attack of this group was they attacked the Korea hydro and the nuclear power in 2014. And their target was obviously the South Korea is their main target, and not only the South Korea, they attacked Japan and USA and other countries as well. And their main target industry was a government diplomat and journalist and some defectors and professor from the university as well. And at the beginning of this group, they are very easy to track and analyze their samples, but these days they are very big. I will introduce today, and they also use the many kind of infrastructures, this compromised web server or free web hosting servers. They are very active these days. Then let's see the first campaign. The first campaign is the surveillance. It means that they want to monitor specific individual who has they have interested, and we also published about this research in our corporate blog. So you can search the keyword translate text and you can find the blog. But today I want to introduce more about how I found this malware and how I analyzed this kind of malware before. So this research was started from the other security vendors' blog posting. One day, the South Korea security vendor named their name is CQI. They are a subsidiary of the Samsung Group. The CQI published about some interesting stuff. In their blog, according from their blog, some suspicious file delivered to the victim. The file was a zip archive, and if the user unzip that file, is a window executable. And if this file is launched, it fetch the PowerShell script, and this PowerShell script upload the basic victim information to the GitHub. And it also created a shortcut file for persistent mechanism, and finally it download the additional file from the C2 server. It's not a complicated, right? It's just if user just execute that Windows P file, it created the additional PowerShell script from the remote server. But what I most interesting point was GitHub, because these days many North Korean threat actors use the GitHub. Because GitHub is free, anyone can make their own repository, right? And they can easily upload some file, or also they can collect the victim's information to the GitHub very easily. So they like the GitHub, but I also like a GitHub. If the threat actor use the GitHub, I can gather more information from them. If they use the GitHub as a public repository, I can get more information from them. So if any threat actor use the GitHub, I really like it. So I have some interest about this attack case, so I made this Yara rule. And it's a very simple Yara rule, just using the string. And the first Yara rule was to detect the executable file. And second Yara rule is I made this one to detect the PowerShell script. So I just use a function name, some uncommon function name and variable name and file path as well, and make this Yara rule very quickly. and I ran this URL to VirusTotal. And the result is I got 3 samples. The first and second one is already mentioned on the blog, the other vendor's blog. So the new one is I got is a third one. It's a file name is a test, and this file was uploaded to the VirusTotal before the other file was uploaded. So it's very interesting. So when I check it, it's another PowerShell script, and luckily it contains other GitHub repository as well. And this is the old one, but threat actor maybe forget to shut down this GitHub repository. So it's still alive when I first initially found this file, GitHub repository. So I go to the GitHub account and start to investigate it. This GitHub was, they joined this GitHub the February of this year, and in the March of 7, they first created some repository named the motorcycle. And at the same day, the 29 commit was uploaded from the victim. And this is stolen data from the victim, like a browser, credential, and login history, and cookie. And also they added some Chrome extension file, or update.xml, and Google Translate.crx file at the same day. The Google Translate.crx file is a Google Chrome extension, and after 1 day later, they removed these files. And after 10 days later, they came back this repository and created another repository. And they upload a meaningful file. It's a kind of a test maybe. So after I checking the GitHub history, the most interesting point for me is they use some kind of Google Chrome extension in here. So, and they forgot to remove the whole history, so I can download this file from the attacker's GitHub repository. Actually, I'm not familiar about the Google Chrome extension, but Google Chrome extension is a kind of a JavaScript file, collection of archive JavaScript files. So I start to analyze this file. The first one is manifest. You can find the piano. The older name is piano, and updated URL is from another GitHub repository. But when I checked at this GitHub, it was offline. So they also, this Chrome extension asks a lot of permissions. It's too much permission, right? They want to ask some monitor each tab, browser tab, and cookie, storage, download history, and the scripting. And they also mentioned the function of several scripts. When user connects to any kind of URL, then contents.js file is launched. And when user connect to the neighbor and the Kakao web page, the us.js file is executed. Do you know the neighbor or Kakao is a very famous web email service provider in South Korea? They also mentioned this manifest file also mentioned if user going to the Gmail address, then gsuit.js file is executed. So when I check in each JavaScript file, luckily it's not obfuscated. So I just look into the JavaScript file. The first one is the left one is the os.js, and the right one is a gsuit.js file. And I'm really sorry that I masked each variable name because I don't want any threat actor use this technique, because some vendor did not respond to this one. So I don't want to expose the whole JavaScript file, but this is the whole JavaScript file. It's a very simple, very short JavaScript file. But you can see the comment. They want to bypass the two-step authentication of each email service providers. So when user connected to their Kakao or neighbor email service, if user enable the two-factor authentications, there is some kind of option. Remember this device and never ask again. They want to enable this kind of option, and they maybe bypass some security measures from the email service providers. So I sent this script each vendors, Google, Kakao, and Naver, and one of that vendor is respond to me, and they take these issues very seriously, and they internally respond very quickly, and they mitigate this vulnerability. So this is the way we, as a threat researcher, we working together as any kind of software vendor, and we want to make a hassle the threat actors. The next file is the contents.js. Is one of the very important components. They hook the various form elements in the web page and collect the email address and password as well. You can see the some type, document type, and they collect the email and the password from the web page. And you can see some comments in here. Maybe, yes, it's a Gyeongnam-H.kr. This is the university name in South Korea. So they make some custom web page, and they monitor this university email login page to steal some login credential who work in this university. They make this kind of page. The next JavaScript is the background.js. It used the dead drop resolver technique. The name is very cool, but dead drop resolver is a very simple one. Just the threat actor put command and control address or configuration data on the public web page, like a blog or GitHub, and malware connects that public website and collects that kind of information from anyone can connect. In this case, this background.JavaScript file use the Google blog site, and they post a legitimate post, but in the middle of this post, they add some keyword and some comment on that blog. So if any people go to that blog site, when I initially go to that blog site, I thought it was a legitimate just a blog site, but there is some comment inside of the blog posting. So there is a full kind of this script can do some full backdoor functionality. The URL is updated there is a C2 URL, and capture function is capture each new created tab and send the time and URL of each tab. When I check that blog, the cap command is enabled, so each infected machine may be send the each tab's screenshot to the C2 server. And del cookie, as name implies, is remove all cookies. And the most interesting point is a run command. It looks like running some Windows command, but it's not. It injects a tag with the MS PowerPoint value. It means and it created some click event at every 3 minutes. It means that it same like clicking the PowerPoint file. Now, I'm not sure why they use this kind of backdoor command. Maybe they want to execute some PowerPoint file to show the message to the victim, or they have some PowerPoint exploit and execute their PowerPoint to the victim. Well, I'm not sure about that. This file also registers 3 listeners to receive some email stealing and the tab update and cookie listeners. I will show this later. This is the summary of the Chrome extension structures. So I think it's not obfuscated. It's not difficult to analyze it, but as you can see, it's well organized, and each script has a clear functionality, and they are working together very well. If the user is connected to any email service providers, then os.js and the gshoot.js JavaScript file is bypass the security measures, and contents.js file steal the email and password and send to the listeners, and background.javascript file is fetch some command from the attacker's blog, and they listen some listeners and send the new update or send some stolen email and password to the command and control servers. So it's a very well organized sample, so it's really interesting for me. And the attribution sections, attribution is the process of research who is behind this attack. So I only have a script file, right? So it's not easy to conclude who is behind this attack. But when I investigated their C2 server, I found I used some brute forcing, scanning tool, and I found some B374K web shell. It's usually used by the Kimsuky groups before. And also when I connect to their C2 server without any URL or without any parameters, then my connection is redirected to the legitimate Google main page. This is also the main characteristics of the Kimsuky servers. And they use the r-e.kr domain. Maybe you guys never know about this domain. It's only used in South Korea, and in South Korea, specific ISP vendor provided this kind of domains registration service. And historically, the Kimsuky Group's favorite domain, they use the p-e.kr domain and r-e.kr domain. So it's likely the domain naming scheme is also like a Kimsuky's habit. And victimology is also, I confirmed the 2 professors was compromised by this campaign. And surveillance of the academic professor and government people is the primary object of Kimsuky Group. So using this attributions, I conclude the Kimsuky Group was behind this attack. Next campaign was espionage. The previous campaign was surveillance to monitor the individual, but espionage is attack some companies or organizations, so it's totally different. Let's see what happened. Another research is. This research was started from I found the suspicious file from the VirusTotal. It's a big file, but you can see the name is some JD job description about the specific vacancy job position, but the file extension is a JSE, is an encoded JavaScript file. And interestingly, this file size is too big. It's like it's not like a normal JavaScript file. So I start to look into it. And when user execute this JSE file, it created first the decoy document. It's a PDF document, but you can see it's a General Dynamics job descriptions. General Dynamics is the defense company. It's a very huge defense company in global, and you must remember the location is Berlin in Germany, right? And the salary is not bad. Salary is the $80,000 and $100,000 per year. It's not bad. And if the user executes this JavaScript, it also creates some backdoor. And this backdoor internal name was httpSpy. So this backdoor is start to C2 communications. So you can see the infection chain is very simple. It's very simple. They never used any kind of injection or they use some intermediate process. They just directly create the payload and start to the C2 communications. During the command and control communications, it's not that complicated because they just use the HTTP protocol and just receive the command from the C2 server directly. So initial connection, they always use the ID equal user and PWD color. This is the hard-coded one. And initial stage, they use the page 4 variable name. And they also send a victim identifier to identify each victim. And this victim identifier is a randomly generated, it's a 4-byte value. And if the C2 server is respond the Y characters, then it will request a command to the C2 server. This is the start of a backdoor operation, right? So when they request the command, they use the variable name is a page 1. And if that C2 server deliver the encrypted backdoor command starting with a Y, then the backdoor is execute that command and send back the result with the contents HTTP parameter name. So when I compare this C2 communication with the other North Korean threat actors malware, it's not that much complicated. It's very simple. They just use the one-stage verification process. They just check the infected machine they want to expect it or not, and they just deliver the command after that. And the backdoor function itself is very simple. There is no kind of high-skilled backdoor function. They just manipulate the file or process. They just take a screenshot depending on the command from the C2 server. They update the configuration or connect to the remote server. It's a typical, backdoors, right? So after initial finding of this malware, I want to expand the research scope. I just have one malware sample set, right? So I try to find the additional sample from the C2 servers. I also used some scanning tool to investigate the command and control servers, and I luckily found another script. It's named maybe down.php, right? I can't remember the exact name, but it was down.php. And when I connect that C2 script, the command and control server delivers some suspicious file. So when executed this file, it created some decoy. In this case, it's a JPG image file, and it's a German name, German characters on there, and it means some medical service assessment from some woman who had a kind of service in German. And most interesting point is that this malware sample was signed with a legitimate code certificate. So this code sign was a legitimate one from the German software development company. So next, what I do is that I created some Yara rule to detect this stolen certificate. So I put that Yara rule on the VirusTotal, and a few days later, I got these samples from the VirusTotal. At this time, it created a very similar decoy document. You can see that at this time it's Lockheed Martin. In previously General Dynamics, this is the Lockheed Martin, and they also show some job description about the automatic engineer position. But this binary was developed by the Go language at this time. So interesting point is the developer created this malware under the user's nikki/go file. So I created another Yara rule to detect this kind of Go language compiled binary under the develop using this path. So I upload that Yara rule after VirusTotal, and a few days later I got these samples. This is a Go language samples and same username with the Nikki, but Nikki is a kind of common name. Any developer can use the Nikki, right? But this is the reverse proxy tool. So when I first initially found this file, I suspicious it's not malicious one. Well, I'm not sure it's related to the previous samples. But when I look into these samples, it used a specific encryption password for their reverse proxy channel. It looks like a DKANEHAH, so it looks like a random string, right? But when I change my keyboard to the Korean, and when I type this random like English, it's a perfect Korean. 아무도 몰라. It means nobody knows. They just use this kind of password. Nobody knows, but it's a Korean. 아무도 몰라. But I know. I understand. I know. So I figured out this system may be very Korean style malware, and they used this kind of password. So maybe the North Korean threat actor developed this reverse proxy tool. This is a summary. I just found 4 more initial infection files, and these 3 initial infection files was signed with the same certificate, and these 2 payload was the same one, and command and control servers have some many characteristics, many overlaps. And while tracking this research, I also found another JavaScript file, but it has a very similarity with the initial JavaScript file, but it used a different decoy. At this time, it's a kind of a meeting note file IO service kind of that. So I confused, but it created a different type of malware. It's not a httpSpy. It's when I checked the HTTP communication pattern, it's Pebble-Dash malware. Pebble-Dash was introduced by the USA CISA before, maybe it's 4 years ago, and they introduced this malware as a Lazarus malware. But this Pebble-Dash connects to the same C2 server, like a httpSpy. So I conclude the same actor used the Pebble-Dash malware as well. So when I investigated this infrastructure, there's so many infrastructure. I just used the passive DNS record and some C2 hunting technique using the showdown or senses. Then I found many domain and IP address. And you can see the some point that defense and DIHL defense. DIHL defense is also huge defense contractor. So maybe in German. So many decoy documents and the domain name scheme point out the target is a German. Also, whole malware I found from the VirusTotal uploaded from the only German. So it means that the main target of this campaign is German and defense contractors. So interesting point of this research was attribution. Many security vendor and researcher just conclude this is the Kimsuky, but not details. So I look into the campaign more and more, and the social engineering technique used in this case is like called Operation Dream Job. They just using the job description and send to the people who might be interested about that job posting. This is obviously the technique of the Lazarus Group before. Also, as the CIS published, the Pebble-Dash malware is the Lazarus Group's malware before. But more things indicate that Kimsuky Group is also behind this campaign. The structure of this JavaScript was the Kimsuky Group used to deliver their malware named the Apple Seed. And they also use the httpSpy. When I checked the httpSpy's code, it has an overlap with the previous Kimsuky malware, Apple Seed. And C2 server naming scheme like a neighbor verify is kind of a Kimsuky style. So recently I can find many intriguing overlap with the Kimsuky Group. Recently, the Korean National Intelligence Service published about the Kimsuky Group and Unraveling Group is working together, and they attacked some construction and manufacture companies in South Korea. And also, South Korea local vendor Unlab also published that they investigated some incident, and there is a Kimsuky Group and Unraveling Group working together, and they attacked a specific group in South Korea. So this is the research I conducted when I was in Kaspersky. They attacked Kimsuky Group. And initially, I thought it was Kimsuky Group. They attacked the cryptocurrency exchange in South Korea, and they used some kind of supply chain attack. They implanted the Durian lead compiled with the Go language, and they implanted the preliminary method but I conclude the yellow one was the Unraveling Group used before, but the green one was the Kimsuky Group. As you can see that they are working together these days, Unraveling Group and the Kimsuky Group as well. So summary is the Kimsuky Group cluster has many clusters. According to the latest publication from the Korean National Intelligence Service, they said 8,600 individuals working for the North Korean threat actors. 8,600. In order to defend 8,600 people, how many people we need? But so at the Kimsuky Group was initially very small, but these days they used several cluster and several campaigns, so they are very active and they are very big group these days. Also, as I said, they have some connection with the other groups like Lazarus and Unraveling Group as well. They working together these days. So at the attribution point is very complicated these days. So I'm not sure what happened to them. They are very small group, but these days they are huge. They are just a team like us, so they can merge together, or they can be collaboration together. They work together from some high level person is older working together, or they can be transferred to the other team. One who developer in the Kimsuky Group transferred to the other group, then they can working together, right? So I have a questions for your communities. The Kimsuky Group has several clusters now. So I always consider it's a time to split them. In just calling them as a Kimsuky, just one group is too big. There are several clusters, too many clusters, so it's not easy to call them just one group. Also, they are working together, several groups, but it's still some small overlap, but some security vendors start to separate them and divide them. So I always thinking about that, the same things. And my confession is I tend to always connect the latest campaign to the old previous campaigns. So it's a bad habit. We, as the cyber attack is very flexible these days, they working together, and sometimes they have another cluster, the new cluster, and old cluster pop up again. And this kind of flexibility, we need more, flexibility to attribute this kind of cyber attack, I think. This is takeaway. Kimsuky Group is a not small one. They are very persistent and they possess several groups, and they are well organized and well resourced group. And in order to respond to this kind of cyber attack, we have to fully understand the full context-based defense is the key. So hit and running style, just check the one malware and move to another campaign. It's not works anymore. So. And for the full context-based understanding, we need to collaboration is the key. Actually, personally, I'm working very closely with the Korean National Police and the National Intelligence Service and Korea Local Search. So this kind of collaboration works very well. So this kind of cooperation is really important, I think. And our team is very open. We track every group in world. So I'm in charge of the North Korean threat actor. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, any critics, if you want to anything to share with me, then you can contact me like this Twitter or email, and I will be around here. So if you want to share something or ask something, then yeah, just hit me up. Thank you.
好，我们谢谢兄叔带来这个精彩的演说。那看大家有没有问题有想问，就是可以用中文问或英文问都可以。Any questions？
就是
我用中文问会比较精准一点，就是从 IT 安全公司的角度来看，我们会怎么样建议我们去分辨Blue North 啊、Lazarus Groups 跟 Kimsuky 这些不同的子类别的组织。
So from like a blue team of corporation, how do you tell the attacks from say Lazarus or Kimsuky or sorry, 最后讲的那个是
Blue North,
yeah, right.
Is that right?
So how would you tell the differences between these groups?
Yes, it's very difficult to attribute them, but I always focus on the technical difference. I try to understand the whole infection chase, like initial infection, what kind of tool they implement, and what is their technique to move laterally, and what is their command and control mechanism. And based on this full understanding, we separate them. And also, the obvious thing is that we use the whole TTPs to separate these groups. And when we look into these groups, each TTPs is obviously different. Like some group has a different target, motivation as well. So based on their characteristics, we try our best to separate them. The first thing is the technical difference. Yep, but it's not easy. I know.
The stuff's like you're saying Chrome extensions.
Yes.
Not a lot of groups use that kind of that.
Yes,
exact.
Chrome extensions. Actually, it's my first time to analyze the Chrome extensions, but it's not easy to conclude the attribution in this case because I just have only one Chrome extension, so I just keep aside in it to monitor the additional monitoring and put aside the conclusion and move to forward additional research. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, no.
Thank you.
We'll have another question. Anyone? Oh, sorry.
What's your recommendation for an enterprise blue team to prevent such a threat, like a Google extension?
Unfortunately, I didn't find out how the threat actor implanted this Google extension. Maybe they, in previous case, they send some link to the victim and imply them they intriguing them to some install that link and install this Chrome extension. But only this case, if you want to respond to this kind of cyber threat, is I can only suggest them some general advice like don't click the suspicious link and don't click the attached file like. But we also used some policy, I think, in this case, because we adjusted some policy like using some browser isolation technique and never allowed to install the Chrome extension to the user. And this is depend on each enterprise environment. But now I can only give you some just general advices.
I've heard that some versions of Chrome have policies that allows you to deny extensions access to certain URLs or domains. So maybe that's another direction maybe you can try.
Yes.
I heard. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Seems like Chrome extension, malicious Chrome extension is something that's kind of new-ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
If your company is allowed to that kind of a policy, just apply that. Because if it is okay, you can apply that. But before that, maybe you need many process and many discussion about that. Yeah.
好，那我们今天这一场议程就到这边，我们再次用掌声谢谢 Kimsuky Park。
Thank you for your listening.